Hi, everybody. Welcome to another 90 minutes jam-packed with wrestling talk. It's Wrestling with Wrestling. I'm Steve, and joining me, as always, the great Doc Gregory, the best goddamn referee in all of professional wrestling.
Well, that's what Kurt Angle said. Well, he didn't say I was a great wrestler, but he did admire the beard, so that's cool. So a lot of people admired the beard this weekend at the Scares That Cares convention. That was a blast.
Yeah, I see from your the pictures you've been posting of it on Facebook. It looks like you had a great time.
Yeah, I did get to talk to some really good stars like William Ragsdale and Amanda Beers that were from Fright Night, of course. Um, I got to talk to William Atherton, who I love because one of my old favorite films is Real Genius, and
Oh
he
yeah.
was he was in that, and of course Ghostbusters. William Forsythe was really cool. He came out and was talking to us. I happened to be wearing my Carl Sagan is my homeboy shirt, and he walked right up to me and started talking to me because when he was a limo driver, one of his first jobs, his first pickup ever as a limo driver was Carl Sagan. And he says Carl Sagan was a bit of a dick.
You know, I've heard that from people. Like, I mean, Carl Sagan, I probably admire more than most people, and I feel like I owe his work a lot. But there are some things like that Carl would do occasionally. Like, I think there is a story about how Microsoft nicknamed one of its versions of Windows because you know how like they'll nickname the operating system while it's in development and before they release it publicly. And one of the versions of Windows they were developing like in the 90s, while they were developing it, they nicknamed it Carl Sagan. And Carl like threatened to sue them. He was like, "You can't name it Carl Sagan." Like he was really kind of uptight about things. But
If he only knew.
yeah. But okay, so let's talk about. We got a lot of wrestling to talk about this week because not only did we have a very important pay-per-view since our last show, Money in the Bank this past Sunday, but it turns out Raw this week was incredibly eventful as well. So we got a lot to cover, and I'm sure we'll both have a lot to say about the pay-per-view and Raw. So let's go ahead and start off by reviewing our prediction results from Money in the Bank. And if I remember our predictions correctly, and I could have just gone back and watched the show to make sure I got it right, but I
Who's
think
got that kind of time?
yeah, it takes an hour and a half to do this show. I'm really going to go back and watch it. Uh, um, that's why it's great that we do a Google Hangout because it goes up automatically. I don't have to fucking touch it. I don't have to see it ever again. Uh, so I think, if I'm right, I think I won this month. I think I got you by one pick.
You may have. I know you got the main event right.
Yeah.
And
I think there
the only
were,
thing the only two I can remember was the Usos, which I got right.
you got that one right. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Let's
the main
write.
event.
Let's run through them, and I'll go down what I have written here, and I think I've got it right. But if you picked a different one, go ahead and we'll correct it. But okay, yeah. First on the show was the tag team match. I got that one wrong. I picked the Wyatts. You picked the Usos, so you got that one right. By the way, I think that was the match of the night. I thought that was an awesome match. What did you think?
I think they really are stepping it up for the tag team division. Hopefully, they can bring more teams that are equal to these guys because it is getting exciting. But it can get stagnant if you keep throwing the same people at each other. But I like the Usos. I like the Usos versus the Wyatts right now. I'd like to see them unseat them. Plus, now we got I don't know, Team Dust or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Uh, but they're making waves as well. So I mean that's really cool. So it's like
Yeah.
it's almost like a rejuvenation of the tag team. Like we're on the cusp of it. So don't let us down, WWE. Don't let us down.
No, I hope that's what we're seeing. And one thing about the Gold Dust Stardust team is, Christ, they're beating the shit out of Ryback and Curtis Axel, aren't they? Right? They've had them like 3 matches in a row, and they've beaten them all 3 times. Next to Money in the Bank was the Divas title match, Paige defending against Naomi. We both got that one right. Paige won that one. Uh, and then there was a match that was added to the show that we didn't have a prediction for because it wasn't booked when we did the show last week, and that was Adam Rose over Damian Sandow. Damian Sandow was dressed as Paul Revere
Hmm.
because they were in Boston, And I mean, this was a short match, and it wasn't a great match, really, but I thought it was better than the commentators gave it credit for, especially on the part of Sandow. I thought he really showed a lot of aggression and energy going after Rose here, even though he ended up losing, of course. And I thought it was a shame that the announcers basically ignored the match while it was going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool because you don't get to see these days too much out of Sandow when it comes to his wrestling ability, and I think they gave him a little extra time. They gave him a little bit of a shine there, which I liked. I even actually enjoyed the Paul Revere gimmick when he was yelling, "The elbow is coming, the elbow is coming," which that was really cool. So. Yeah, I thought he did a really good job, and I knew he'd come up on the losing streak of this, but at least it was a little bit more than a total squash. Which, thank you for that, WWE.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And but that the elbow was coming bit, like I thought that was great too. But again, like the commentators completely ignored it. It's like they weren't even talking about the match while it was going on. It's almost like you have this guy up there who is like just fucking throwing himself out there and doing the best he can with what he has. And actually coming up with something kind of clever, because he's Paul Revere, the elbow is coming, and it's like they're not even paying attention. That really got on my nerves. Because it feels like the guy's being kind of shit on with this costume every week gimmick anyway, and when he finally tries to make it work, it's like the fucking, Cole and Lawler and JBL don't even say anything about it. Next was the first ladder match, the Money in the Bank match. Bad News Barrett was not in the match. He was completely off the show because of his shoulder injury. So it was Dean Ambrose, Dolph, Swagger, Kofi, RVD, and Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins won the briefcase. I believe, Doc, didn't you call Dean Ambrose for this one? Or did you say...
I believe I did say Dean Ambrose.
Yeah, so I got that one right and you got that one wrong. But I thought of the two ladder matches, I thought this was definitely the better one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they really turned things up and were going after each other and some very unique moves and setups the way they were utilizing those ladders. So and yeah, Dean Ambrose. I called that he was going to win, and he came out there and he had a really, really good showing. So it's nice to see that even after this, I'm still going to get to see that Seth Rollins Dean Ambrose feud that they're going forward with.
Yeah, definitely. I did like the way they booked Dean in the match, because they had that tease where like he was pulled out of the match because he hurt himself, and then he came back for the finish. I thought that was just great.
There was that moment where he was over at ringside and he looked right over into, I guess, the referee's eyes or something, and his a pretty normal voice. You caught the tail end of something he said. He did the aside straight. He looked right into the camera and realized the camera was on him and he pulled back. Yeah. And so I think he broke kayfabe there for a split second that you saw.
Yeah, but I thought so whether that was planned or not, whether he was really hurt and he actually had to go back and get taken care of and come back out or not, the way it played out was terrific. And man, Dean Ambrose is, we've said it for the last couple of weeks now, but I really think if they keep pushing him the way they have been, and if they keep heating up this feud between him and Seth Rollins like they have, I mean, he's going to be huge. He's getting such massive reactions from the crowds every week. Next was what I mentioned a second ago, another match between Goldust and Stardust versus Rybaxel. That wasn't announced beforehand, so we didn't call any predictions for that, but Goldust and Stardust won that match. And then was the match between Big E versus Rusev. We both got that one right. We both picked Rusev.
But I do believe that the promo that Big E cut before the show for all Americans was priceless.
Yeah, man, that's like, I feel like that the same way I felt about, like, remember last year or 2 years ago when for some reason they just decided to have Cesaro yodel? Mm-hmm. It feels like that to me. Yeah. Like, it just feels like here's a guy who has good talent, who has good charisma, and it's like you're just giving him something stupid to do just for no reason. Like that when he does that voice, that preacher voice for the Promos, I'm going to stand up for America. It doesn't sound like him. Like, I mean, he's good at it.
Yeah, he doesn't talk like that normally, but
no.
But I don't often get to see him do anything remotely entertaining. such as that very often because I was not privy to NXT and some of his gimmicks over there. So so seeing that, I thought that was pretty cool because it was something different. It's nice to see. For me, it's just nice to see because I don't think Big E was catching on. I mean, honestly, don't really think.
I don't think he was.
No, I think that they need to sway him or swerve him in another direction.
Yeah.
Just, if they want to keep him like this, it could work.
And he's a young guy, and he's obviously doing what he's being asked to do, and he's saying, okay, if I really throw myself into this, I can make this work, and hopefully it does, because I like Big E. Maybe the preacher, the Baptist preacher promos will catch on. I don't know, but it's. I mean, it strikes me as like the kind of thing that maybe like he did backstage, just kind of like horsing around with some of the boys, and like Vince heard him do it. And was like, you should do that in your promo, pal. And he was like, really? Yeah, totally. Do your promo like that tonight. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Very possible. Very possible.
Yeah. Next was the Summer Rae versus Layla match with Fandango as the special referee. And we both actually got that one wrong. We both picked Summer Rae, and Layla picked up the win there and won the prize of Fandango. And they left the ring. Summer Rae was left in the ring after the match, crying, actually crying, and all three of the announcers made fun of her. Yep. Even though she is ostensibly the babyface in this feud, even though she doesn't really act like a babyface, she's the one who got dumped, who's coming back for revenge. Fandango and Layla are clearly heels. Summer Rae loses and is in the ring crying, heartbroken, and all three announcers make fun of her. So.
But they're both a bunch of trollops. Trollops, ladies and gentlemen, both of them. They're both shimmying and shaking their asses all over the ring just to impress what? Fandango? I mean, who's not getting over?
Right. But who loves triangles, we learned from his promo. Fandango loves triangles.
Sorry about that. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, hey, when the fans sing it, your theme song sounds like the theme song to Bewitched, okay? Just so you know, Fandango. Da 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 da. That's totally the Bewitched song. And then finally, the main event, the second ladder match. This one's for the WWE World Heavyweight Title. It was Alberto Del Rio, Bray Wyatt, Cesaro, John Cena, Kane, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, and Sheamus. I called this one correctly, unfortunately. Cena won. You picked Bray Wyatt, which would have been cool, but didn't happen. I feel bad calling this not a good match because everybody. I mean, Christ, Randy Orton got his fucking head broke open in this match.
That was cool.
I mean, yeah, he was, hard way, as they say. I mean, that guy was like, it was on the top of his head, you could tell. And everybody seemed to work hard. And there were some really awesome spots in it, like the segment where Roman Reigns just killed everybody, just like ran around knocking everybody down and hitting all of his spots. I mean, I thought that was terrific. It was really exciting. They were really into Roman Reigns. There was a moment where him and Cena faced off alone in the ring that the crowd seemed really hot for. But Cena wins, and I understand sort of the reasoning behind Cena winning, but it's sort of it shows how weak the booking has been. That now that Daniel Bryan is gone, and now that and CM Punk is gone as well, they really have nobody else on the babyface side that is ready to carry that title for any length of time other than Cena. I mean, fans bitch about how they just went right back to Cena, but really, I mean, they don't really have anybody else on the babyface side that's ready, which is their fault, but that's just the way it is,
Yeah, but I think they're painting themselves in the corner. I mean, at this time, Cena has never really been this disliked. His popularity is probably at an ultimate low at these days. I mean, he's still got his hardcore fans and true fans, but yeah, people dislike him in massive numbers these days, and he keeps getting stronger. I mean, so it's like I know why they're doing that. Yeah, he'll represent the company. He's a workhorse. He's going to go out there and do it. He sustains very little injuries. So I mean, you can count on John Cena. And that's the thing they want to do. They don't want to fall flat on their ass, but they're also not willing to take a chance.
Yeah, and that's been a problem for a while, you know. And if they had taken more chances, you know, over the last 2 years, they would probably have guys that they could turn to other than John Cena, who you could plug into that world title picture, and they would be credible. You know, I mean, they have Sheamus. Sheamus is big. Sheamus looks good. Sheamus has been champion before, but Sheamus, you know, has basically been doing nothing for 2 years. He doesn't feel like he's a guy who should be the world champion. You know, same thing with the other baby faces. I mean, you know, Dean Ambrose is still coming up. He's not quite ready yet. Roman Reigns is not quite ready yet, although you can tell they're getting him ready. But it wouldn't be as good. Like if they put the title on Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank this year, I mean, it's better to wait until WrestleMania for him, which I assume is what they're planning to do. I hope that's what they're planning to do. I hope he doesn't win the title like in September at some bullshit off-brand pay-per-view.
It was nice though to see the Shield in separate. I mean, of course you had Dean Ambrose and Seth going against each other, but they were fighting each other in Roman in a complete separate match. So you had really all three members of the Shield who we kind of worried about a little bit, splitting those guys up. I guess they were on the fence about it, but they really did an excellent individual job, very well on Money in the Bank. So kudos to those guys. They are going to have a bright future, all three of them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And not only did they all do well in terms of working their matches, but the crowd seemed to care about all three guys. They like, you know, Seth Rollins got reactions as a heel. They're crazy about Dean Ambrose as a babyface. They're really into Roman Reigns as a babyface as well. So yeah, I agree. The split at this point has not hurt any of the three guys. And in fact, in Dean's case, I think it's actually helped him a lot. I mean, he's all of a sudden shooting straight to the top, which is great. Okay, so that was the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I mean, I can't quite give it like a super ringing endorsement. I don't think as a show it certainly wasn't a bad show. I wasn't like pissed off when I turned off the TV. But it wasn't a great show. But man, that tag team match between the Usos and the Wyatts I thought was great. I thought the first ladder match was pretty good. So overall, you know, I thought it was a pretty good show.
I think they could have done without a second Money in the Bank match because to have two of them like that, almost you had the first one and those young guys went out there and they gave it their all. And like we said, like we both agree that we think that first one there was the best of the two ladder matches. So by the time the second one came around, you know, all the fizz is taken out because the young guys just, you know, tore it up and did everything the fans wanted to see. So what are you going to show us?
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it would have been better if, since they decided they had to vacate the title because Bryan is out indefinitely, maybe it would have been better to fill the vacant title with a different kind of match instead of a ladder match. Maybe have like a mini tournament or something, or like a 6-way elimination match, or do something other than another ladder match. I agree. 2 ladder matches, even the last couple of years when they've been doing 2 ladder matches on the Money in the Bank show when they had the separate world titles, I thought it was too much. You know, because it's like it should be a once in a year gimmick, and they would do like, no, here's 2 on the same night. You know.
But yeah, it was good, man. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, I love Damien Sandow's showing. I like that Daniel Bryan came out. I mean, he was looking good, but you know, of course, we got the bad news about where things are headed with him. So that kind of sucks. I think was it Bree? Was Bree backstage? Correct?
Oh yeah.
He got thrown out.
got kicked out. Yeah. What did you think? Because I didn't really think anything of it at the time. But what did you think about? Because the Bryan segment on the pre-show has actually been criticized by some people because they felt like Bryan he didn't have enough fire. You know, he wasn't like they figured since he had been stripped of the title that he should have come out and been pissed off and been like, you know, I'm going to come back, and when I come back I'm going to win the title, and you know, and he was more just sort of like, hey, guess what? I might have to have another surgery. You know, I'm going to be out for a long time. And then he did the
fans are finicky. Yeah, fans are very, very finicky. I mean, I remember when we had Big Time Wrestling come here to Hagerstown, and a lot of people had already pre-bought their tickets because Ric Flair was going to be on the show, and with his son Reed, And of course, that was the very weekend that Reed Flair died. So Ric Flair couldn't make it either, and people were just so pissed off, demanding their money back because Ric Flair couldn't make it. They just did not understand, that some people have real medical issues that need to be taken care of, or real emergencies that need to be taken care of, because outside the ring, they're all human beings. I mean, they all have normal lives, normal stresses, and a lot of times they're even worse and tenfold because they're away from home for so long and they're on the road for so long. And I was on the road all weekend, 3 days straight, and driving from here to Williamsburg, so it was a long, long drive for me. And it's just the want to be home. It can get in your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Daniel Bryan comes out and he's happy that he's able to take part of the show and let fans know that he's okay, but give them an update and be honest about it. He has nothing to be disappointed about. I mean, the WWE realizes it, and he realizes it is best for business that the company carries on without him while he recuperates. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really have a big problem with it when I was watching it. I figure I'm pretty much assuming that he's going to be out for a long time. Like, I figure I would just go ahead and, unless you hear something different, just assume he's at least going to be out for the rest of this year. Because, and if that's what it takes, that's how long I want him to be out. I don't want him to come back early and get his ass hurt again, even worse. And like we've talked about before, no matter what they do now, he's going to be out for so long, it looks like, that whatever angle they have him do, whatever interview they have him do, I mean, when he comes back and he's ready to wrestle again, it's going to be so huge. The fans are going to be so hot for him that it doesn't matter. People aren't going to be like, well, I'm glad that Bryan's back, but if only he had cut a hotter promo back at Money in the Bank. Nobody's going to care.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna get over big time, and all we need to do is look at Monday Night Raw to show that even some stars that are not quite as huge as Daniel Bryan right now did just fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Raw now, because that was the next night. They were live from WWE headquarters, basically, in Hartford, Connecticut, the home of WWE. And the show started with Triple H and Steph coming out, and after they kind of have some chatter back and forth, they bring out the new champion, John Cena. And I noticed that Cena has the belts snapped together and draped over his neck like a clerical stole. Like he's like the Pope coming out with the belts like strapped around his neck. And he baby faces himself to the crowd immediately by promising to give Daniel Bryan a title shot when he comes back, which is great for Cena to say, because I think we all know that probably by the time Bryan gets back, Cena ain't going to be the champion anyway. But it's still it's nice for Cena to say that, to keep Daniel Bryan in everybody's minds, and to, use his stature as the top babyface to continue to push Bryan, so that even though he's gone, we don't forget about him, so everybody is really hot for him when he comes back. I thought that was fine. Steph and Hunter try to kiss up to Cena by revealing that he's the cover boy of the new WWE 2K15 video game that comes out later this year.
I think it comes out next year, right before WrestleMania.
Does it?
I think they've moved the official dates from, I think it was October, early November, which is usually when it came out, to right before WrestleMania, which will help promote the show. It's kind of what they're thinking to do this year. So I think, I'm pretty sure that's
that makes more sense. That makes more sense, have it come out right around a big show. So Cena's on the cover, and yes, that's WWE 2K15 that Cena's on the cover, not WWE 2K 2007. It's John Cena. Triple H and Cena kind of make fun of each other, because Cena kind of starts to sound a little thug when he cuts his promo, and Triple H, cuts him off and makes fun of him like Triple H does all the baby faces, because Triple H isn't afraid of anybody. And Cena talks to him in a Boston accent, and it gets kind of weird and kind of goofy for a second there, but then they kind of find their bearings again and go back to a more of a serious promo, where Triple H tells Cena that he never had a problem with him. He doesn't care that Cena's the champion as long as he remembers who the boss is, and just in case Cena forgets who the boss is, he books him in the main event of the next pay-per-view, which is Battleground. which will be the last pay-per-view before SummerSlam. And the main event of that show is going to be Cena defending the title in a four-way, and the other three guys in the four-way are Randy Orton, Kane, and Roman Reigns. And those four guys will also be in the main event of Raw tonight in a tag team match, Cena and Roman versus Orton and Kane. And then before Cena gets to walk out, Triple H also says, and remember, even if you somehow make it out of the fatal four-way at Battleground with the title, there's always a plan B, and plan B is Seth Rollins with the Money in the Bank briefcase.
I wonder if they trademarked plan B yet.
You know, I always think of like the morning after pill. Like Seth Rollins is plan B. If you get knocked up, don't forget, ladies, if you have kind of a brain fart and the guy comes inside you, call Seth Rollins. He will take care of that shit. Don't ask how. It's probably best not to ask these kind of questions. But Seth Rollins will fix it. He's the pregnancy fixer because he is plan B. And anyway, so Seth comes out, and this leads right to his match with RVD, which he wins with the curb stomp. I thought it was actually a pretty decent match. They both worked really hard. The crowd chanted ECW very noticeably at one point. In Hartford. So, you know, chanting ECW in WWE town. And yeah, there was a nice spot, I thought, where Seth was going to do that corner power bomb he does, but RVD reversed it with a Hurricane Rana. But Rollins ended up getting the curb stomp and winning. So I thought it was a pretty good match.
Yeah, I think the curb stomp looked pretty damn good on last night on Raw. I mean, it was bang on and looked pretty devious. It's RVD knows how to take. For some reason, he knows how to take facial bumps or head bumps because when he takes, he's probably one of the guys when he takes a DDT, I worry about him. Like, oh my God, he landed right on his head. How the hell did he do that?
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And yeah, you know, well, and he really, because one of the things we mentioned last week was how he took the curb stomp kind of awkward, like he kind of forgot to get into position for it, and this time he was right there, like he's completely on top of that shit. And then after the match, the really interesting shit happens, because this is my favorite. This has been my favorite part of the show the last couple of weeks, is the Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins stuff. Renee Young gets in the ring to interview Seth Rollins. He calls her Toots. And then he says he might sound like he's arrogant, but he's not arrogant because he can back it up. And then Dean Ambrose interrupts on the Titantron and basically says the next time he tries to cash in the Money in the Bank contract, Ambrose is going to be there. And every time Seth Rollins tries to cash in the Money in the Bank contract, Dean Ambrose is going to haunt him. And he's going to be there every time to fuck up his attempt to cash it in. I thought this was awesome. What a great setup for this feud. It's so simple.
One scumbag to another scumbag, as we said. From one scumbag to another.
I loved it. I love Ambrose, and just it's so simple. It's not complicated. It's Ambrose is pissed off at Rollins because Rollins turned his back on him, and now Rollins has this contract he can cash in, and Ambrose is saying, if you try to cash it in, I'm going to be there and I'm going to fuck this up for you. And it can go on. It could go on for months because he can hold that case for a year.
For a year's time.
Wow. So it's such an awesome. It's the kind of wrestling story that I just love because it's so simple. You know?
As we got a title that's on the loose at this point.
Oh, that's true. We'll get I might as well go ahead and talk about it because I think actually that segment was cut from my Hulu version. Because why would people who watch it on Hulu need to know about the Intercontinental title? Oh yeah, because Bad News Barrett is injured and apparently is going to be out for a while. So the title, the Intercontinental title, is now vacant, and they're going to have a battle royal to crown a new champion. So yeah, so.
This depresses me greatly. I mean, CM Punk leaves. Daniel Bryan gets hurt. Bad News Barrett gets hurt. Don't try this at home, children.
No.
If I lose Sandow or Jack Swagger, I'll just have to. I'll kill myself. Sorry.
Hey, speaking of Swagger, that's a good segue because Jack Swagger, the next segment, which again was cut from the Hulu version, but I went back and found it and watched it because it sounded so interesting. Lana and Rusev come out and cut their usual anti-American promo, and the American wrestlers that come out to stand up for the USA are none other than Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger, who is now a real American babyface. against the evil Russian Rusev. I thought it was awesome too, man. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's about time they pushed him in that direction because when they do the "We the People" chant, everybody is behind them completely. It's getting over big time. Zeb's a great talker and has the ability to get the response he wants from the crowd, whether it's heat or them cheering. So. Yeah, I mean, they push him as an all-American, like badass type of guy. Like he for some reason his stature in that ring Monday night looked impressive to me,
Yeah.
standing there against Rusev, and it's like maybe it's just confidence that this is going to go somewhere because this is a feud in the making right here. This one's going to be interesting, I think.
Yeah, me too. And when you saw that segment, I mean, to me, I was like, man, why didn't they try to push Swagger as a babyface years ago? Because he's technically sound enough that he can be like a badass, Kurt Angle type babyface, where, and Kurt didn't work babyface that often, but in his career. But when he did, he was like that kind of a guy, like that super sound technical guy who can just tear through people, and people cheer him just because of how awesome he is. That can be Jack Swagger. And the babyface turn was awesome for him and for Zeb. And again, it's just like the Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins thing. It's just so simple. Rusev and Lana are anti-American. Jack Swagger, even though he's been a heel, has been the real American for years, or the all-American before that. So you completely get it when he comes out and he stands up against Rusev, and he doesn't have to cut a promo explaining why he's a good guy now. You see what's going on and you get it. And I just thought it was great. It was one of my favorite segments of the show.
Zeb pointed out all the key points of why she comes to this country, why she's allowed in this country, because she's allowed to say the things that she was saying. If he tried to do that, he can't do that in her country because he's not allowed to do that in her country. So it's like it was a good comeback to how not so good Russia can be.
And when Swagger, the way they laid out their interaction was great too, because they got physical a little bit, but it was just, Rusev charged Swagger and Jack just arm dragged him a couple of times, and then they separated. Rusev got out of the ring. So Jack looks good. He looks capable. He looks ready. He looks like he's not afraid of Rusev, but at the same time, Rusev doesn't look like too much of a punk. He doesn't get punched or knocked down or beaten up. It's just a little bit of a taste where both guys end up still looking good, so you can look forward to the match. I thought the whole thing was just great.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that this lasts longer than just maybe to Battleground because it does have a lot of potential. The Big E and Rusev did not last long, and that was almost disappointing to see that feud not last long because they're both impressive men. I mean, Big E got punked out by Rusev.
Yeah, Rusev basically stepped on him on his way further up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope they at least get. I mean, SummerSlam is right around the corner. I hope they at least get. So I'm sure they'll do something at Battleground. I hope they at least get a match at SummerSlam too, because I mean, Swagger as a babyface is a great idea, and with Zeb as his mouthpiece would be awesome. Mm-hmm. And putting him versus Rusev it just makes so much sense. It's just perfect. And that's a great summertime wrestling match, like the patriotic wrestling match at SummerSlam. There's something about that just feels natural to me because it's like you're around the 4th of July, you're in summertime. I thought it was great, and it's something I didn't expect it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't go into the show expecting, I bet they're going to turn Jack Swagger babyface tonight. I mean, it just was a surprise, and it was so easy and so natural and so simply done. I just thought it was great. Next there was a 6-man tag match. It was Sheamus and the Usos versus all 3 members of the Wyatts. And the thing that strikes me about this match, I thought it was a decent match. The Wyatts won. Luke Harper hit the lariat and pinned Jey Uso. I thought it was a good match, and I liked it. They're still keeping the Wyatts really strong, even though they lost the tag title match at the pay-per-view. They're coming back and showing themselves as still viable challengers and still like a dangerous group, which is good. And it's been happening for a couple weeks now, for a couple of months now, but when the Wyatts come out and the arena is totally dark and you see everybody's cell phone light in the crowd, and they've gotten so good at shooting it now, like the WWE cameramen have gotten really great at shooting that, and having like crane shots that sort of float through the crowd and showing all the people with their phones up. That is one of the coolest visuals that I've seen in wrestling in a long time. It's really striking and really kind of haunting to see all those lights and Bray walking down with the lantern, and it's the best entrance they've got, I think, right now.
Yeah, this group really has the potential to be like almost a new version, modern day version of an NWO, because it's a heel faction getting over so big. And I mean, the T-shirts are already out there. I've got myself a Wyatt Family T-shirt already. Yeah. But if you just force some merchandising behind these guys, it's going to go crazy. I mean, right from the beginning, they were selling the sheep mask, and they were pretty good. That was pretty good sales there.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. I mean, it is. You can compare it to the NWO, I think, because they're acting like heels, but they're getting over like baby faces. You know, it's not like Bray is going out there and slapping people's hands and smiling and cutting babyface promos and mentioning how great it is to be in whatever town they're in. Like they're not doing any babyface stuff except giving the crowd things to chant along with, which isn't traditionally like something that a heel would do, but like every fucking heel does it now. So it's not like they're the only ones that do it. But yeah, and they're getting over crazy huge as babyfaces. Even when they did their bit a little bit later in the show with Jericho,
yeah,
they got kind of a babyface reaction.
Or they got the "This is awesome." I mean, the lights popped up. They were standing there, and the whole crowd was going, "This is awesome! This is awesome!" And you know that it's just an ass whipping about to happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, this was the 6-man match. The Wyatts won, and then my boy Bo Dallas got to come out. He actually made the Hulu cut this time, which is nice for me. And he asks the crowd to observe a minute of silence for Bad News Barrett and Daniel Bryan because they're injured and they're out for a while. And then he does the Tebow pose on the stage. And I didn't count, but it felt like he took the whole minute. I'm pretty sure he sat there and took the whole minute.
I'm pretty sure it took forever. I was like, okay, all right. And yeah. To me, the announcers were right on this one. It was Bo Ring.
Like, Ring.
Like, come on already.
And then he says, "Don't stop Bo leaving." And they recap the Daniel Bryan thing from the pre-show the night before. And then Bo says, "Don't stop Bo leaving." I love Bo. And I love the look that Nikki Bella gives him as she walks out, because her match is next. And as she walks by Bo, she kind of gives him like a, like, what the fuck is with this guy?
Please.
So the next match was Nikki Bella in a handicap match versus Cameron and Naomi, the Funkadactyls. This was booked by Steph as punishment for Nikki because she invited Brie backstage at Money in the Bank, as we mentioned earlier. And the point of this match isn't so much Nikki, it's just the tension between Cameron and Naomi, because Cameron has all of a sudden become a really self-involved show-off who's kind of done with the whole tag team Naomi thing. And the Funkadactyls actually win the match. Naomi tags herself in and gets the pin on Nikki. But then post-match, they have like a little fight, and Charles Robinson, the referee, gets in and breaks them up, and they don't really come to blows or have like a big fight, but Cameron just kind of goes whatever and walks off by herself. So it looks like they're going to break up pretty soon here. And by the way,
I want to say happy birthday to Charles Robinson. He's 50 years old today.
Oh, hey, all right. Great referee, man. Little Nate, as he used to be called.
Yeah.
Great referee. Yeah, the thing about that whole segment that we just talked about with Nikki and the Funkadactyls is it didn't sound like the crowd gave a shit about any of it. They were quiet for the match. They didn't give a shit about the fight between Cameron and Naomi. They just kind of, I guess everybody was up getting a hot dog or taking a piss during that show. They didn't react almost. I didn't hear them reacting to anything.
That's why I found it funny when I posted that picture about two Divas matches on Raw.
Yeah, 2 bathroom breaks.
2 bathroom breaks.
I mean, I was going to talk. I'll wait till we get to the Fandango segment, which is coming up pretty soon here. But I have some thoughts on the whole the Divas situation and the Summer Rae Layla thing and everything. Anyway, before we get there, there's a couple segments I missed because they were skipped for Hulu. As I mentioned earlier, the Intercontinental title has been vacated. They cut that out of the Hulu version. Cesaro and Kofi had a match that was actually noteworthy because they had the pinfall occur during the commercial break. So if you weren't watching on the WWE app, you missed the pinfall. And Kofi won. Kofi won, and then afterwards Cesaro kind of kicked the shit out of him.
Whipped the shit out of him. Yeah, he did.
I guess because he was pissed off that he lost and he wasn't even on TV. He was like, "You went home during the commercial, you fuck!" And he's like...
It just seems these days Kofi's in the doghouse because he's an impressive wrestler and he goes out there and he electrifies the crowd, but he's getting his ass kicked tonight. I mean, if it's in the ring, he'll get his little wins from time to time, but I mean that was to give him moral victory because the real setup was to make Cesaro look like the badass, like give a little bit more of his temper out there and show people what he's got.
Yeah. Yeah, Kofi is just one of those guys that who has been around for years and is always reliable for a good match, and like you say, he can get the crowd into his matches. Like, they care about him, they like his big high flying spots. He's a really likable guy. He's a really charismatic babyface. But I mean, he's just never going to go anywhere. They never have anything for him other than maybe every once in a while they'll toss him the U.S. title or the Intercontinental title for a month or two, just, I guess, so that he knows that they haven't forgotten that he's there, But he's one of those guys that he's totally a reliable mid-card guy, but he's just never going anywhere.
I cannot believe they ended that match during the commercial, though. I was blown away by that.
Yeah, me too. I don't have a big problem with it. I don't think they should do that regularly. Like, I don't think they should do it again, like, for the rest of the year at least, or for another few years. But having something like that happen every once in a while is kind of cool because it sort of makes it feel like it's a little more real. Like back in the 90s when All Japan Wrestling was like huge in Japan, and a lot of people were watching it in the States as well, and they had like Misawa and Kobashi and Toshiaki Kawada and all those big great stars of the 90s in Japan. Every once in a while, not very often, but every once in a while, they would have the main event of a big show end in like 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Where like the guy would just fucking run the guy. He would just run him over and crush him and kill him and pin him in like 2 minutes, and just to give fans, just to remind them, like, hey, anything can happen. Just because it's the main event doesn't mean it's going to go 30 minutes. Like, one of these guys could be having a really good day and he could just fucking break this guy's head and pin him, and that's it. So doing something like that every once in a while, I think, is kind of cool. But I don't think they should do it. I don't think they should make a habit of it.
Yeah, because if they did make a habit of it, they're gonna piss off NBC and USA.
Yeah.
Because that's their bread and butter on their networks. So.
And they're gonna piss off fans too, because people are pissed off now. I think that they pimp the WWE app so much. And if they use something like this and say, hey, the match might end on the app. It happened with Cesaro and Kofi, and they use that like as an excuse to like keep pushing people to the app. I mean, that's going to just alienate the fans because, if you haven't downloaded the fucking app by now, you probably don't want it. Right. And you're sick of hearing about it,
But luckily, and thanks to the WWE, and this is what they're really good at, and that is instant replay. So when you come back from the break, they show you what happened. Because they're really good at repeating themselves all night long just to get into your head. Did you see this thing where the guy shows up Monday Night Raw and laying on his seat in the audience is the script for the show, and it got posted up on Twitter. The script for Monday Night Raw.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that and share it with you so you can see it. It was pretty cool.
Wow, that's kind of a mistake. Oops. Hey, did somebody see my script? Oh shit! I left it on the seat.
You're fired.
Yeah, exactly. That reminds me, wasn't there? I think there's a story. I think it was when Eric Bischoff and Hogan first came to TNA. I think it was their first episode of Impact, where they did an angle in the ring at the beginning of the show where Eric Bischoff like he took a copy of the script for the show, and he held it up in the ring, and he was the point of the angle was to say, you know, this is the script for the show, and we're going to throw the script out because, you know, anything can happen now. And he takes the script and he like rips pages out of it and like throws it into the audience. Well, then they go to commercial after that segment's over, and all of the the production assistants have to go out into the crowd and get the pages back from the audience because it was an actual script for the show. So all those people with pages of the script would know what was going to happen later in the show because they couldn't just get him like a dummy script. Nobody was that fucking smart. He had an actual script for that show that he threw out into the audience. I mean...
No, wait, I was supposed to give you last week's script.
Yes, exactly. Or how about you don't talk about your wrestling show having a fucking script? Oh, here's the script for our wrestling show. It's like, here's the script for our baseball game. It's not supposed to have a script. It's supposed to be real, you know? You don't see the fucking actors on like Law and Order holding their fucking scripts while they're doing the scene. Anyway.
Just in case no one has heard yet, Emma has been released from the WWE.
Oh, really?
Yes, they had put it up on their website due to she was arrested for grand larceny.
Oh, wow. Well,
now, her lawyer was saying that there was some kind of mistake or
yeah, that's the last I heard about it.
Yeah, but
the last I heard about it was it sounded like it was just going to be no big deal. Jesus.
That's the way I thought. I didn't think it was going to be a big deal either. I thought it was just a mistake and that she'd come out of it nice. I mean, it wouldn't be any issue. But yeah, apparently, right here on the WWE website, Emma has been released.
Oh man, that sucks. Not that they were doing anything with Emma anyway, but
she hasn't been on TV in weeks.
No, but it sucks for her because she was a really good talent, I thought. Jesus. Yeah, well, breaking news, everybody.
Yep.
You guys watching live couch.
Oops.
Well, well, all she needs to do is, you know, I hope she saved some money and she can just buy herself her own bubble machine and then she can take it with her when she does all the indie dates that she's going to be doing now. So she can still do the bubble gimmick.
I just don't get it when celebrities do that. It's like when Ryder went out and stole merchandise. It's like,
yeah,
why? I mean, I don't have shit really to my name, and I knew at least, you know, I had sticky fingers when I was young, but I knew at least when I turned 18 to stop doing that shit.
Yeah, and you know that, like, I mean, even most people who steal shit because they can't afford it. I mean, there are some people who do it like just because it's a thrill, but most people who steal shit do it because they can't afford to pay for it. If you can afford to pay for it, what the fuck are you doing stealing shit? Mm-hmm. You idiot. Like, it's not just that it's wrong, it's stupid. It will fucking totally fuck your shit up if you get caught. Why the fuck would you do that? Jeez, that's kind of got me off now. I didn't realize Emma got released. Okay, well, let's get back to the show. Another thing that was cut from the Hulu version was the Damien Sandow versus Great Khali match, where Sandow came out dressed as Vince and was booked against Khali because Steph came out and said, well, if you want to be Vince, you know, Vince got to become a success by defeating giants. So here's a giant for you to defeat. And out comes the Great Khali, who gets in the ring and chops him in the head and pins him in like fucking 5 seconds. So.
Yeah, this is what I was wondering what happened because I'm looking at this match going, I do not remember this match, and it's because I went and took a slash, and came back and I was on the next match. It must have went to commercial after this match because it's like when I left the room I thought we were on commercial, and when I came back we were still in commercial, so I thought we didn't miss anything. Wow, apparently I did, and that was just another embarrassing moment by Damien Sandow. But
yeah, really.
When it comes to entertaining, though, I mean, dressing up as different characters every week, I get a kick out of that. I mean, it's almost like Goldust. If you found it weird in the beginning, it's like he took it and he owned it, and you know that's what Damien's doing. You know, I mean, it's a job at least. You could be, you know, could MC you later or whatever.
Yeah, he could have just got released, for fuck's sake. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I'll give Damien Sandow. He's a team player, man. You can't ever say that. he's a company guy. He's gone out there for the last, I mean, Christ, the last 8 months almost, and made a fool out of himself and dressed up in silly costumes and done shit that has like almost nothing to do with his gimmick before this. And yeah, he's, like I said, like you mentioned about the, here the elbow is coming, Like, he's making it work. He's doing the best he can with it. So hopefully they're paying attention.
And then there's Kali. Why? Why? I mean, here's a guy who is completely, except for his actual size, is unimpressive to me in the wrestling ring. I mean, I would bank on it that if Kali wanted to impose his strength and his will on you, it wouldn't be an issue. But his work is so sloppy. I think Andre in his later years had more charisma and footwork than Kali does right now.
I think you're right. As limited as Andre was. Yeah, well, he can't talk. He's so big that he can't really work. I mean, it's not even his fault. He's just so huge. Like, what do you do with a guy? Like, if you were wrestling the guy, I mean, even if you were like 6'10", what the fuck do you do with that guy? He's just so huge. The only thing he can do is sell for him, and he's only got like 2 moves. So,
he doesn't, and Kali doesn't sell very well either.
No, he doesn't
do that. He's horrible at it.
He doesn't. No.
But God bless you, Kali. I love you.
He said, yeah. I mean, maybe it's the sort of thing where like they're keeping him under contract because they just like him, or because he's a nice guy, or because, maybe they know that he has a limited shelf life and they feel like they owe him something. I don't know. But yeah, it does. It's one of those things where when you see guys like Kurt Hawkins or Evan Bourne getting released for cost-cutting measures, and then there's the great Kali getting TV matches still, and getting to go over guys like Damian Sandow, who you would think would be part of the future, it does make you kind of go, gee, I wonder what they're thinking.
Because now you got these guys who have just been regulated back to the indie cards, and yes, their stars risen so they can charge you more money, but you let Kali go, and he's just fine. He goes home. He's got businesses over in his own country. I mean, he's got wrestling that he does over there. I think he owns a school over there. He would be just fine. I really don't know why WWE just continue to utilize him. See, I always thought that WWE had a huge closet, and that's where they shove everybody like Kali. You won't see him forever. And every now and again, it's just, you open the door and let's see who comes out. It's Kali. All right, you go out there. They got like the Brooklyn Brawlers in there. You never know. And Sergeant Slaughter's in there. So you never know who's coming out.
That's true. They just have like a pen where they have all these guys. Like, Hacksaw, get out here. And he's just there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this segment with The Miz and Chris Jericho, and also the Wyatt family, because that was the surprise at the end of it. I didn't expect the Wyatts to come out and get involved, but I was very happy that they did. Miz comes out. The setup is on the website and on the pre-show they had been pushing that there was going to be a surprise return tonight, and the surprise was going to be a guy who was a former WWE champion, and they kept using this phrase, a cross-platform multimedia superstar. And it was The Miz, or at least it seemed like it was The Miz. At first it was The Miz. The Miz comes out, and he talks about how he's been out shooting the Marine 4. Ooh. And they begged him to stay in Hollywood, but he wanted to come back to the WWE, even though they told him he could be the biggest movie star in the world because he's just that good. But he knew that the fans in WWE didn't appreciate him and didn't realize how great he was. So he's back to show everybody how wrong they are and to prove how great he is. And he says he's not leaving until he main events WrestleMania again, which means that he's never leaving. Because he's never main eventing WrestleMania again. I'm sorry, Miz. That's never happening.
Well, to be honest with you, when the Miz was talking, it made me, especially when the music kicked in and Jericho came down to the ring, and they tease which return it is, and you get the Miz, is it him, or you get the Chris Jericho, is it him? But to be honest, I probably would enjoy Marine 4, and I don't think I would be very interested in it, but I would probably enjoy Marine 4 better than sitting down and listening to a full Fozzy CD. So.
That's true.
Sorry, Fozzy, but I think you suck. I don't like Chris Jericho's voice.
That's true. I'm the same way. I actually gave Fozzy a shot, like when Jericho first started, like really pushing it, and he was like, "I'm leaving for a year to go tour with my band, Fozzy." I was like, well, "Let me hear what they have," and I think they're fucking terrible. I have no fucking use for Fozzy's music at all. It's not even like so bad it's good. It's just like, oh, I don't need that. But yeah, so Chris Jericho comes out and interrupts The Miz, and he doesn't say anything at first, and Miz gets a couple of good lines off on him. He says like, "Oh, is this like you from 2012 where you come out and you don't talk and your jacket just lights up?" Which I thought was kind of funny.
Light bright jacket.
Yeah, the light bright jacket. But then Jericho cuts him off by hitting him with the code breaker and knocking him out. Jericho gets on the mic and he is about to say that Raw is Jericho, but before he can finish that, the lights go out, the lights come back on, and there's the Wyatt family, and the crowd chants, "This is awesome," and then the Wyatts just beat the shit out of Chris Jericho, and I thought it was terrific.
Yeah, which I think this is basically because I knew Jericho's back for a while.
Yeah.
So this is probably going to be his opening feud. He's going to go up against the Wyatt family. I thought that this was a great segment because I saw a meme pop up that I thought was almost perfect. It had a picture. It was a three-piece meme. It had a picture of the Miz on stage, and it says, first I was like, eh. And then Jericho in the ring is like, then I was like, this is cool. And then it had the Wyatt family, and it's like, then I was like, this is awesome. So it's like that and it is true. It's like that whole promo segment built up until a really good conclusion. So it's really the kickstart of the Jericho Wyatt family feud, which is going to be really good, really good.
I think so too. I thought I was really excited, and man, the crowd chanting "This is awesome." I mean, I think a lot of that is because, like what we were saying earlier, like I think to a lot of people, the Wyatts are basically baby faces at this point. But also just the whole the promise of like a Chris Jericho of number one of Jericho coming back, because a lot of people still really love Chris Jericho, and he's been away for long enough that you can feel like happy to see him again, fighting the Wyatt family, who are still a really hot act. And, having Bray Wyatt go from feuding with John Cena to feuding with Chris Jericho means that Bray is still going to be in a really visible, important role on the show, which is great. He won't just go get shunted back down to the mid-card and end up just kind of doing nothing for 8 months like everybody else happens to do. So the segment itself was awesome. It's like, oh, this is awesome. They're doing the Wyatts versus Jericho. Everybody's happy. Jericho's back, gets to work with a young guy. Bray gets something cool to do for his next feud. I mean, the whole thing was awesome. And the crowd chanted "This is awesome" a couple of times during this show, which shows that even though like the crowd, everybody talks about how cynical wrestling fans are and how internet wrestling fans don't like anything and all they do is bitch and complain. But these are the same people who chanted "Yes" for Daniel Bryan for a year and forced them to put Daniel Bryan on top because they didn't like anything else on the show. It proves that if the show does something right, if the WWE gives fans something that they really appreciate, they will get behind it 100% because they loved the fucking Wyatt family versus Chris Jericho on that show.
They do approve.
All right, so let's talk about this fucking bullshit with Fandango and Layla and Summer Rae. The match was Fandango and Layla, or Layla at ringside with him, versus Dolph Ziggler. I thought it was an energetic match. It wasn't really a long match, but Dolph fucking gave everything he had like he usually does, and so did Fandango. Big "Let's Go Ziggler" chant from the crowd, as there usually is when Dolph has a match. And then in the middle of the match, Summer Rae comes out and just kind of walks right into the ring in the middle of the match. No music, which I thought was cool. No entrance music. She just walks out and gets in the ring, and she grabs Dolph and kisses him, and it looks like she's doing it like to make Fandango jealous, but then Dolph grabs her and pulls her in and kisses her back, and then she kind of gets out of the ring and she looks kind of confused, like, oh, what are these feelings I'm feeling? And Dolph hits Fandango with his finish and gets the pin. So Ziggler wins a match, which is cool. Fandango loses a match, which isn't as cool, but he fucking loses all the time anyway. It's like two guys who always lose, so one of them has to win. And I think good for Dolph. At least it gives Dolph something to do. But and I also think it's nice to have like stories for the divas on the show. But man, I hate this fucking Summer Rae versus Layla story because
Yeah.
it's all about they're fighting over a man. It's two women fighting over a man, and it's just the stupidest thing. It's like can you think of a worse reason for two female wrestlers to fight on a wrestling show than to fucking fight over a man?
Yeah, and I'm wondering that there are tons of women out there who love professional wrestling. There are a lot of women out there. But I'm wondering what percentage of those women who love professional wrestling, because they are rare, but what percentage of those women like this bullshit?
Yeah.
I mean,
It can't be that. If you're I have no idea.
yeah, that's perplexing.
I don't like this bullshit. Well, and the thing is like, I could really take Layla or leave her. I don't have anything against her, but she's not like, I don't look forward to seeing her. But I really like Dolph. I still really like Fandango, and I like Summer Rae. I think they're all three really good performers that could really contribute to the show, especially in the years to come, because they're all still young. And I think, I think Summer Rae is great. If you ever see her stuff in NXT, it's when she's a heel, and she is just the most awesome fucking bitchy heel ever. The way she taunts people in the ring when when she's in control in the match, and she'll like stand up and walk around and yell at them and throw her arms out, and she is just such a great like angry, arrogant heel. It's awesome. So all three of them are potentially really, really great superstars, and they're just Fandango dumped Summer Rae over Twitter, and she's mad, and now she's gonna hook up with Dolph to get revenge, and it's like, oh, come on.
And before this match, they apparently went up and shook each other's hands, and then forgave each other, and then they pull off this bullshit right in the middle of the match. It's just, if you think that's building up a storyline, it's just laying more shit on top of the shit brick you just made.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. As much as I love all like the Dean Ambrose stuff and the Wyatt family Jericho stuff, like I hate this fucking Summer Rae Layla stuff. It's just dragging everybody down. Next was another Goldust versus Ryback match, and Goldust and Stardust won again. So this is 3 times in a row they beat the shit out of Ryback and Curtis Axel. And by the way, the backstage promos that Goldust and Stardust have been cutting, I think they've been on the network. I don't know if I'm not sure if they've actually been on Raw, but they've been on like the pre-show or the Fallout show, the post-show. And they are just hilarious with Goldust and Stardust kind of fucking with Byron Saxton in the locker room. Really, Goldust just seems like Dustin Rhodes seems like he's really having a good time. Which is good to see. It's nice to see him, who is still in such a good spot in his career, can still work a great match. Even at his age, especially for his age, is one of the best workers on the roster, and is just having such a great time in this tag team with Cody as Stardust. I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for Ryback because it just seems like it was just less than a month ago that I was really impressed with how far they've come, and they started to look like more of a dominant team. Just lose time and time again to Stardust and Goldust because it's a new thing. But still, it's like in building that team, you made another one really look weak because you didn't throw them a bone at all.
Yeah, and if they hadn't released the guys from 3MB, they could have been doing that. They could have been the guys to make Stardust and Goldust look good. Or better yet, if the matches are just going to be basically squashes anyway, why not bring in some guys from NXT or bring in some guys from the local indie promotion and just have them come out and have a 2-minute match with Goldust and Stardust. It's basically the same thing, and you don't have to make Ryback and Axel look like a couple of goofs.
I like MSL.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and enhancement talent, I think would benefit them very well, especially on their smaller shows like Main Event and I would give more than 2 matches on Main Event. I would give us maybe spotlight 3 or 4 matches, and they're all really enhancement matches. and SmackDown, I think, should be geared more toward NXT's your training grounds, and SmackDown's more up for the I like the high flyers, the younger guys, and Raw's for the guys who have really solidified their talent and ready for prime time and live shows.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would be all for more enhancement matches.
I definitely see wrestling in all their different little groups as almost like in baseball. You got your minor league, you got your major leagues. Well, you got your little league, you got your minor league, you got your major leagues.
Yeah, and I mean, I like it that way. Like, I think it's like, on his podcast, Jim Ross has said a couple of times, and I think it's actually a good idea that, as long as they're at the level that they're at, a promotion like Ring of Honor should actually be making a big deal about the fact that it's become sort of like a feeder group for the WWE. Like, they should talk about how, CM Punk and Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan and all these guys who from watching WWE now, they were here first. Cesaro. I mean, they were stars here before they went there. And because, Ring of Honor at this point is the third place fed, and, TNA is the second place fed. So, to structure themselves and not call themselves a minor league, because you wouldn't want to call yourself like, we're a minor league fed. But, sort of promote yourself as this is where the stars of WWE get started, and having that tiered structure of like, okay, WWE is obviously the major leagues, but we're one notch below. But if without us, you don't get their high quality product,
And I think it should be a new rule that only the WWE, because it is the cash cow, it is the moneymaker, it is the A game in professional wrestling. They're the only ones allowed to have a world champion. Anybody who is not number one in this business, like the WWE, well, like the rest of these promotions, everybody else, you cannot use world champion. You just use heavyweight champion. Your promotion's heavyweight champion. Never use world champion. Only if you're in the WWE.
Well, back when I was younger, when people still gave more of a shit about, like Pro Wrestling Illustrated and The Wrestler and all those kayfabe magazines, I mean, there were wrestling fans kind of sort of treated like if PWI recognized it as a world title, then it was a world title, and if they didn't, then it wasn't. And that back then, like for American wrestling, there was, for a while there were only two. There was the WWF title and the WCW title, because the NWA kind of went downhill, and ECW didn't quite get big enough to be like a true world champion. So like the wrestling magazines kind of decided that. But now nobody really reads the wrestling magazines. Nobody really cares.
I remember when the magazines were a little hesitant in recognizing the WCW world title or calling it the world title, because they had so much appreciation for the NWA, and that was a bum out to them. They did the same thing for ECW too. They weren't ready to recognize it. I don't know if they even ever did. They weren't ready to recognize ECW as a world title.
Yeah, and actually, I think, a lot of those magazines was, just as worked as the wrestling shows, but I think they did it, at least publicly, they had like certain criteria, if it's a world title, like if a world championship, it has to have been defended like overseas at least once in the last like year or so. They had rules that they said that they used to determine whether or not a title was considered like a true world championship, which made it seem a little bit more like boxing. Like boxing has official governing bodies, but there's also like Ringside Magazine, which has always sort of been looked at as like a respectful publication or a respected publication that gets to decide whether a given world championship is really a world championship or not. So let's talk about the next Divas segment on Raw. It was Paige. She came out and cut a promo and said that, people thought she was a fluke champion and she didn't deserve to be here, but she's beaten all comers since she won the title the night after WrestleMania, and she's proven that she deserves to be here. And then out comes... Go ahead.
She's being a little heelish.
I think definitely she was.
Even from the beginning, I caught that from her, even before, AJ comes down.
Yeah,
and
AJ
she
comes
carries over. Then she gets a little bit more heelish.
Oh, and if you didn't, the underlined moment that tells you that, oh yeah, she's definitely a heel now, is when she says that the people don't want to see her fight. You know, when obviously the crowd did. Like, they were hot for AJ coming back. AJ came out and challenged her to a match. And when Paige said, I don't think these people want to see a match, okay, she's no longer a babyface at that point, you know, which doesn't really make any sense. But I guess that's what they're going with. Paige all of a sudden is like, overnight she becomes a heel.
Well, with AJ coming back, and you heard it right from the fans, you know what she's going to remind people of. And you heard it loud and clear, the CM Punk chant.
As soon as she came out, they started chanting for Punk. Yeah.
So, I mean, why not ride that wave? Because you can get her over by, reminding people that, hey, guess who she's with.
Right, yeah. You can't have Punk on the show, but you can have Mrs. Punk, which everybody knows, whether they ever acknowledge it on screen or not. Everybody knows that that's what the deal is. So Paige and AJ have a match for the title, and it's basically the reverse of what happened when AJ left, when Paige won the title. Paige tells AJ, "This is my house now," and then gets rolled up with an inside cradle, and AJ wins the title. So, and it wins the title in babyface fashion, because heels don't usually win with an inside cradle.
Right. Good pop from the audience too.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
They're very, very happy to see AJ back. I'm very happy to see AJ back. She was my favorite part of the Divas division during her title reign. I thought she was great. So yeah, now we have Paige, who up until this point has been the underdog fighting champion, who is now the heel.
Well, she's better. She's better as a heel. She should be.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too, but it's just the turn doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the turn don't make any sense.
But yeah, I agree. Paige is much better as a heel, and I hope she becomes like a badass heel, and she's not like a crying, whiny crybaby heel like she was after this match. I hope she comes back and she's like she was in NXT, the anti-diva. She's just a pissed off badass who just goes in and looks to fucking kick ass and hurt people. And AJ, who comes out totally cocky, and totally she knows that she's running the show. Like, as soon as she shows up, she's the babyface. So, yeah, I'm glad AJ's back. I hope that they use Paige better as a heel in terms of her character than they have since she's been a babyface. So, I mean, no real complaints for me about the segment. It's a little sudden. All of a sudden, Paige is a heel now, and AJ's back, and AJ's a babyface now. So,
she's got a nice stomach, though. Woo!
She's been doing sit-ups.
Damn.
she's been doing some fucking sit-ups.
She is way, way small for me as a wrestler, I mean, she's so dainty.
I'd break
her.
She gets by with it, though. I think she uses her size to her advantage when she does that finish where she, ties him up in, the tarantula hold for her submission. I mean, the way she kind of spins around and, just latches onto him like a tick or something. I mean, I think that works. I think that works really well for her.
Yeah, I think she's a really good performer in the ring. As she's come a long way from where I thought she was just a ring rat.
Yeah, she's come a real long way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed with it, and the finisher is suiting for her and her size.
Yeah, and it's over. I mean, people. By the time she got to the end of that Divas title reign, when Paige finally beat her for that title, and she'd been champion for almost a year. I mean, that was when she hit that hold. I guess because, she had done it so many times and she had won so many matches with it, that was the fucking over finish. That was one of the most over finishes in the company. Because you knew, it was lights out when she fucking got that thing on, that was it. The girl was going to have to tap out.
Yeah, it's one of those exciting moments where you can see her trying to get into the maneuver, almost as exciting as watching Bret Hart flip you over and try to throw and start to throw you in the sharpshooter. It's that moment that, before he locks Nick, in that moment he sits back, it's locked in, and you're not getting out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that excitement, just to put one move on, the excitement that builds to do that, it's about as exciting as a fight in Dragon Ball Z. It's like,
here it comes! Yeah. So next was the main event of Raw, the tag team match, Kane and Randy Orton versus Cena and Roman Reigns. Triple H is at ringside, just kind of sitting by the timekeeper's table watching. Crowd is really hot throughout the match. Roman Reigns looks really strong.
Took the majority of the heat in that match.
Yeah,
So he did take a lot of punishment.
yeah, he
So
did.
which I thought was odd that they not well that they made him look weak like that already by just punishing and punishing and punishing. Um, I think it should have been John Cena that took the heat.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to hurt Cena at this point.
Mhm. Well, to me, it would also point out that these three guys are really could threaten you for that title because they all are beating your ass, and the Roman you save for the big finish, the hot tag.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it makes more sense because clearly of the two, Roman is more over as a babyface. I mean, people still love Cena as a babyface too, but like half the crowd hates Cena and is not going to cheer him as a babyface no matter what he does, whereas Roman is much more accepted by the whole crowd. And he's the young guy. He's the guy you're trying to get up to that level. I mean, you'd think you would want to save him for the hot segment at the end. But anyway, this match kind of breaks up into a one-on-one because Reigns and Orton sort of pair off and end up fighting each other up the aisle and leave the match. And then Kane draws a disqualification by hitting Cena with the steps. Cena does not throw the steps in this match.
I was looking for that part. I was like, watch him get them. Oh my God, the steps are in play. Holy shit, we're gonna see it again. So yeah, it was nice to see it.
As soon as the steps are being used, you're like, oh fuck, Cena's gonna throw the steps at him. That's like something he does now, but he didn't do it this time. He got the steps fucking crashed into his face, and then Kane tombstoned him. And Cena's in the ring just laying there like completely out. And I love that the crowd chants one more time after Kane tombstones him. The crowd chants one more time because they want the monster heel to really kill the babyface champion.
Bunch of savages you are.
Oh, they are, man. And then Seth Rollins comes out with the briefcase because Cena is out. Cena is selling like he's dead. And out comes Seth with a referee and the briefcase, and he wants to cash in, but the referee is too ethical. The referee will not call for the bell because he sees that John Cena is unconscious. And Triple H is even getting in his face. It was John Cone was the other referee who came out. And Triple H is even getting in his face going, call for the bell, ring the bell, he's going to cash in. And the referee is like, I'm not doing it. He's unconscious, Hunter. I'm not going to call for the bell, which I thought was kind of cool. And in the meantime, while all this is going on, out comes Dean Ambrose, and he jumps on Seth Rollins, and they brawl into the crowd. The bell was never rung, so the match never officially started. So Seth Rollins did not cash in and fail. He just never actually got to cash in. So he still has the contract. The feud with him and Ambrose is continuing, which I love. I think the whole thing is great. And then Triple H and Roman Reigns have a stare down because Roman Reigns comes running back in and spears Kane and takes him out. And then there's a stare down between Roman Reigns and Triple H, and that brings another "This is awesome" chant from the crowd, which has got to sound good to the WWE because one of the big matches for SummerSlam supposedly is penciled in as Roman Reigns versus Triple H. So that's got to be cool if the fans are into it at this point that they're chanting "This is awesome" just when they're doing a stare down. That's what you want to see. And then the show ends with Triple H backing down and leaving Roman in the ring. So there you go.
But yeah, great Raw. I thought it was really good. I mean, I was
great Raw.
Yeah, I actually started to watch it Monday, but fell asleep, so I watched it most of it Tuesday and didn't get through all of it. But then I sat down today and started from the beginning and watched the whole thing again. So yeah, I mean, it was top. It was a top-notch wrestling show, I believe. Where was it from? Where was it from?
I believe it was from Hartford, Connecticut.
That's right. Hartford. Amazing. I went up there. It's a fairly boring town. It's amazing that people are actually driving there to see a wrestling show.
I hear there's a wrestling company that actually operates out of there, though. So
when I went up to Salem, Mass, I swung by Hartford, Connecticut, and right up the main highway, you see the building.
Yeah.
And if you go to my Facebook page, I think there's a picture of me standing in front of the building, and I got my arms stretched out, and big silver building with the WWE flag on top of it. So it was like, look, I was there.
Yeah. Yep. WWE's hometown. So yeah, a really good Raw. Best Raw in the last couple of weeks at least. Big improvement over the last couple of weeks, I thought. Okay, so We've had a lot to talk about so far. We're kind of getting down to the wire here. So let's talk about our legend of the week, Doc. A really good legend this week. Tell us all about it.
Okay, well, I don't have any notes, so I'm just going to kind of briefly read what I got here, and but I do want to talk about probably a guy that as soon as I mention his name, you're going to think, well, that's a badass right there. That's a badass guy right there. But let me say that he first started in wrestling back in the early '70s, and he went under the name of Johnny West, and that was in the NWA Gulf Coast, and I'm talking about no one other than Kevin Sullivan. Yeah, Kevin Sullivan started back in the Gulf Coast and in the Florida area around 1972, and he used to team up with people like Mike Graham and face off against people like Pete Sanchez and everything, and Roy Shire, and mainly stayed on the undercard when he first broke into the business. Then he moved over into the Florida territory. With Championship Wrestling from Florida. He was known then as the Boston Battler. Sullivan's devil worshiping gimmick started to actually come up at this time. He started to actually do that stuff, and the CWF became associated with Maniac Mark Levin, who was Purple Haze, Bob Roop in the Lock, and Luna Vachon, again amongst others as the Army of Darkness. That was their team name back in Championship Wrestling. I'm not very familiar with that time because it was before I was born or into wrestling, but this is around the time he came into contact with people like Woman, and we all know that story where that went to. She actually was Kevin Sullivan's girlfriend, which is why you had the rumors when it comes to the Chris Benoit death, and we all know Kevin Sullivan was responsible for that. He killed them all, right? We all know that.
Exactly. Everybody knows that.
From 1987 to 1992, Kevin Sullivan worked for Jim Crockett Promotions in World Championship Wrestling. Now, this is where I know really Kevin Sullivan from for the first time. This is when he would create what they called the Varsity Club, and I love the Varsity Club. And it contained Mike Rotundo. We all know who Mike Rotundo is. He's got two boys in WWE. Rick Steiner. They started to actually feud with Jimmy Garvin because Sullivan wanted Garvin's girlfriend Precious at the time. When Steiner left the group, Dr. Dusty Williams actually joined in along with Dan Spivey. I love Big Dan. He was really cool. I loved the Waylon Mercy gimmick back in the WWE.
Oh, yeah.
But they got to feud with the likes of Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors, Rick Steiner, Eddie Gilbert, may his soul rest in peace, and messed around with people like Missy Hyatt, One Man Gang. Anybody remember El Gigante? He was involved. But not a very good report on Kevin Sullivan. Most of the things you hear about Kevin Sullivan aren't really that positive. And he's just one of those guys who tells it like it is. When he left WCW, he headed down to Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and he got in a big, huge feud with primetime Brian Lee down there. And he actually enlisted the help of Night Stalker and the Mongolian Mauler to soften up Lee. And he threw him a pretty nasty fireball in his face at the time. Kevin Sullivan was pretty famous for throwing fireballs in the ring. Very violent character. From Smoky Mountain, he traveled over to our little hardcore stomping grounds, Extreme Championship Wrestling. Him and Nancy actually worked up there. And they teamed up with Tasmaniac, and they won actually the tag team title against Public Enemy. So Sullivan also had a bloody feud with Abdullah the Butcher in ECW, and Sullivan left Woman behind and headed to World Championship Wrestling in spring of 1994. This was probably not the most popular time for me when it came to Kevin Sullivan. This is when they were getting into the fights with Hulk Hogan and picking on the dyslexic Dave Sullivan, and then Hulk Hogan, of course, came in and picked him up, and they were fighting against Hulk Hogan, doing the Faces of Fear gimmicks, and everybody was changing. It was weird to see Earthquake over there being, what was he, the Shark?
The Shark. Yeah, well, he was Avalanche, too.
Avalanche.
Avalanche, and then he was the Shark.
I believe Ming was in the group. And whoever the big fat guy, Dusty guy, the big guy that would sit at the throne of the Dungeon of Doom.
Yeah, the Master. I can't remember who that was, but yeah.
He was just known as the Master.
Yeah.
But also, like, in that group you had the Barbarian, the Yeti, Hugh Morris.
Yeah.
Loch Ness, One Man Gang, and of course my guy, I love the Big Bo Rogers, and the
Yeah,
giant, and the
the
giant.
Giant. Yeah, who was originally introduced as Andre's son.
Hmm. And then you had poor Brutus Beefcake, who couldn't figure out his identity back in the day, and was
Oh God.
hanging around the group uh, both as the Butcher and then as the Zodiac.
Yeah.
But they pretty much teamed up with the Four Horsemen to try to end Hulkamania in WCW unsuccessfully, I might add. Um, but when time came for WCW to be purchased by WWE, Sullivan was not one of those guys that was going to be coming along for the ride, and he pretty much disappeared off of the wrestling scene. He has done a few things here and there and worked some various promotions. He has been over. He has made one appearance in Total Nonstop Wrestling as the officiator in the first Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. So that was cool to see him over there. He works just various independent promotions, but I always thought that Kevin Sullivan he was one of those guys. He was rough, he was tough, he knew how to talk. He was pretty much all business, and yeah, he might have taken a few liberties. He might have let some power go to his head because he had been given power to do things in WCW. Um, but Kevin Sullivan is one of those guys you look at him, you don't fuck with him. He's almost got
No.
that. You sit down and talk to him. He's got that like mentality. He can look at you and give you this crazy eyes like Charlie Manson, and you just realize that you don't want to be you don't want to have any heat with Kevin Sullivan. So Kevin, if you see this, baby, I respect your career. I love you dearly, man. I've heard some pretty rough stories about you. As we know, here I'll read this. It says. This is a kayfabe storyline, but Sullivan's wife, Nancy, left him in favor of his rival, Chris Benoit, as we know. In the late 1990s, Sullivan conceived an angle where Nancy, who under the ring name Woman was his manager, would leave him for Chris Benoit. Sullivan insisted that the two should travel together, share hotel rooms, and hold hands in public to preserve kayfabe for the general public and to make the affair look real. Nancy ultimately married Benoit in 2000 because of the real-life imitating kayfabe. Sullivan and Benoit had a contentious backstage relationship at best, and Benoit defeated Sullivan in a retirement match at Bash at the Beach. Benoit did, however, admit to having a certain amount of respect for Sullivan, saying on the DVD Hard Knocks, the Chris Benoit story, that Sullivan never took undue liberties in the ring during their feud, even though he blamed Benoit for breaking up his marriage. Sullivan later publicly paid tribute to Chris and Nancy after their tragic deaths in June of 2007. So, yeah, that was that's kind of the story between the Chris Benoit and Kevin Sullivan. If you were not aware of it, and that's why all conspiracy theorists will come out of the woodworks and say Kevin Sullivan was responsible for killing all them. It's a murder scene.
Yeah, but not only did, according to Benoit at least, like not only did Sullivan not take liberties with him when they were in the ring together after all that went down with Nancy, but when Sullivan was the booker, which he was like for a lot of the time in WCW, you never got the sense that he was, holding back Benoit or trying to bury him or make him look bad. Like he seemed like he treated him pretty fairly, which takes a little bit of restraint, I think. Like the guy who, your wife left you for, to not just completely bury that guy if you have the power to. That it says a little something about Kevin Sullivan. At least he tried to be fair, when it came to the show. And a really influential booker like Kevin Sullivan. Like you said, I mean, he was a booker in WCW in the 80s and the 90s. He was there right at the very end before they got purchased by WWE. A really influential booker and a great wrestler, especially a great brawler, and a great personality, a great manager and talker and everything.
Yeah.
Great legend and great guy to hear tell stories because he's been everywhere and he's been around forever, and he, like you said, you never really get the impression that he's bullshitting you. You
Yeah,
know?
if you ever get a chance, everybody, take just go over to YouTube and type in Kevin Sullivan shoot interviews or anything like that. They're really
Yeah.
interesting. So just get it from the horse's mouth. Get some great stories from this guy. He is very intriguing, and he's been everywhere and done pretty much everything. Got a ton of respect for the guy.
Yeah, ton of stories to tell and a ton of great mind for the business, as they say. Well, before we get out of here, let's do some network recommendations. We each have one, and it just so happens that our recommendations this week are two WCW pay-per-views that actually happened one right after the other.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, which I think is great because they're two of my. I think they're two of the best shows that WCW ever did. I think. So why don't you go ahead and do yours first, Doc? Because yours actually happened before mine.
I was going to ask that, and I'm looking at it and go, oh, I know which one you chose. But I want to recommend, because I was talking about Kevin Sullivan, I want to just recommend Wrestle War 1989.
Yeah.
Placed live in Music City. Nashville Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee is where this took place. Let me go down here to the card. In a NWA United States Tag Team Championship match, we had Eddie Gilbert and Rick Steiner, the champions, with Missy Hyatt, go against the Varsity Club with Kevin Sullivan and Dan Spivey, who I mentioned, Kevin and Dan. In a tag team match for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. See, this is where it gets confusing in WCW because they had a shitload of belts. They had United States Tag Team belts, and this is for the World Tag Team Championships. And Nikita Koloff is the special guest referee for this match. We have the Road Warriors with Paul Ellering, and they went up against the Varsity Club, which was Mike Rotundo and Steve Williams. Kevin Sullivan was in their corner. Oh, and I should mention that the Varsity Club are the champions at this point in time. In a singles match for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship with Terry Funk, Pat O'Connor, and Lou Thez as guest judges, Ricky Steamboat, the champion, put his belt on the line against Ric Flair. That always is a great match if you get a chance to ever see one or never see one. You got to check out Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat. They are classics. In a singles match for the NWA World Television Championship, we have the champion Sting. He was the television champion at this time. And he actually went against and put the belt on the line against the Iron Sheik. And he was with Rip Morgan. And the singles match for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, we had the champion Lex Luger face off against Michael P.S. Hayes. I love Michael P.S. Hayes. I love the Freebirds. And in his corner was Hiro Matsuda. I'm sorry, I have to actually read those names slowly, but it's Hiro Matsuda. And in other matches, we had a tag team match with the Dynamic Dudes. We all remember Shane Douglas and Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis as Johnny Ace. So it was the Dynamic Dudes, and they faced off against the Samoan SWAT team, Samu and Fatu. And, of course, they would become more famous in the WWE as the Head Shrinkers. And their manager at the time was Paulie Dangerously. And so they were Paul Heyman guys at the time. And a bull rope match, we had Bob Orton Jr. with Gary Hart go up against Dick Murdoch. And these are old school wrestlers, so I think this was a really good match for a bull rope. To me, it's the way a bull rope match should be done, so check that one out. In a singles match, we had Ranger Ross. I don't even know who the hell that is anymore.
Who the fuck is that?
Ranger Ross. Like that Fire Marshal Bill or Fire Marshal guys they used to run around in WCW. I don't know. But he went up against Butch Reed, and I loved Butch Reed, and I think he did a great job in being part of Doom when he was in WWE as the natural Butch Reed with the frosted blonde hair that he had. So yeah, I loved watching Butch Reed wrestle. And in another match, we had Doug Gilbert with Eddie Gilbert, and he faced off against the Great Muta, and he had Gary Hart in his corner. So if I had to recommend one pay-per-view on the network this week, I want you to check out Wrestle War 1989. I think it has a lot of really good matches, and also features the Varsity Club with Kevin Sullivan, who was our legend this week.
And it's a terrific show. It's one of my favorite WCW shows. And my recommendation is actually the show that followed that one. That Wrestle War 89 was in May of 89, and in July of 89, From Baltimore, Maryland, in the Baltimore Arena, it was the Great American Bash 1989, which is one of the best pay-per-views I think anybody ever did. The main event was Ric Flair defending the world title that he won from Ricky Steamboat at Wrestle War versus Terry Funk. A great match, and just really the first match of their feud that year, because they eventually had their I think their I Quit match from later that year at a Clash of Champions is even more famous than their match at the Bash, but their match at the Bash is really good too. Ricky Steamboat challenges Lex Luger for the U.S. title. Sting versus the Great Muta for the TV title, and then there's also a War Games match featuring the Road Warriors, the Midnight Express, and Dr. Death Steve Williams versus all three members of the Freebirds, which at the time was Michael Hayes, Jimmy Garvin, and Terry Gordy, and also the previously mentioned SST, the Samoan SWAT team, Samoan Fatu. There, so that's the War Games match, and a really good War Games match, kind of a forgotten War Games match because it doesn't have the Horsemen in it, but it's a really good War Games match. Sting versus Muta was a great feud in '89 that you get to see an example of. Flair versus Funk was an awesome feud. Steamboat and Luger is a good match. Just an awesome show from top to bottom. There's other stuff on it too. The Varsity Club versus Steiners have a Texas Tornado tag team match. A really good show. One of the best shows that WCW, Jim Crockett Promotions ever put on, and a really great companion to Doc's recommendation of Wrestle War. If you have like 5 or 6 hours that you want to kill watching the WWE Network, watch Wrestle War '89 first, and then watch Great American Bash '89 after that. And I mean, you can't do a hell of a lot better than that, because those are two really awesome shows, and it's cool that we happen to both pick those back to back today. Well, that is it for this week. We will be back again next week to do this all over again, to talk about some more pro wrestling for another hour and a half or so. We're on the road to Battleground first, and that's really just kind of a pit stop. The big show coming up in August is Summerslam. Going to be some big matches there. A lot of really cool, exciting things happening all of a sudden in WWE. Chris Jericho's back, AJ's back, Swagger turned babyface. The Wyatts are still bringing it. It's really, and they're going to have to do something with the Intercontinental title now that Barrett isn't going to be able to defend it. So there's a lot of really interesting, fun things happening. This was a great episode of Raw, and really puts us on a good track going ahead eventually to SummerSlam. So, Doc, thanks as always for joining me, buddy.
Yeah, and I just want to put out there, make sure you get over to Facebook and like our Wrestling with Wrestling Facebook page. That'd be great. It's facebook.com, Wrestling with Wrestling. Make sure if you haven't, and you just found this video online randomly, to go to Steve Shive's channel here and subscribe. And make sure if you like more wrestling, come on over to my channel, which is youtube.com/HorseheadBill. Subscribe to that channel. I just put up a couple of new matches this week, including, I believe, it was Mr. Touchdown Mark Angel versus High Tide Bodie Williams. Get over to my channel and check that out. That match is awesome.
I bet I haven't watched that yet. I bet that is awesome. Bodie Williams is hopefully going to be a star at some point, because Bodie Williams is awesome. Great independent wrestling star. Okay, that's it, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.
Take care, guys.